The army and the navy never looked on heaven's seas. They will find the streets are guarded by United States Marines.
And anyone who knows my grandmother knows how proud she was to have served for her country. That was one of her greatest achievements in her life, and ours too. I always brag about my grandmother being a Marine because it's pretty cool. All right, we're gonna have a prayer and memories from Ann O'Brien, Grandma's niece.
What a pleasure and an honor to be with all of you, all our family members, all Aunt Edie's and her children's friends. It's a pleasure. Okay, hope I can get through this. Put my teacher roll on. It helps now and then to step back and take a long view. We accomplish in our lifetime only a tiny but significant fraction of the magnificent enterprise that is God's work. Each one of our lives is unique in talent, challenge, opportunity, and achievement. The mosaic of Edith McGinnis Houlihan's life is beautifully unique. Loving God, thank you for creating Edith McGinnis Houlihan. We know real grief is not healed by time. If time does anything, it deepens our grief. The longer we live, the more fully we become aware of who Edie was for us, and the more intimately we experience what her love meant to us. A real, deep love, very unobtrusive, seemingly easy and obvious, and so present we take it for granted. Therefore, it is often only in retrospect or better in memory that we fully realize its power and depth. Tears of gratitude soften the pain of her absence. We envision Edie communing with her deceased loved ones, and we are comforted. Our hope and prayer, God, is that Edie will continue to embrace us as we journey through life. The Irish say it best, and I love the Irish. Death leaves a heartache no one can heal. Love leaves a memory no one can steal. We love you, Edie. Amen.
Thank you, Ann. That was beautiful. Next, we're going to have Bob Spangler. Reflections from Edie's sister, Ruth Poochie Spangler. Bob, come on up.
Hi. Good morning. Just wanted to take a few minutes. I am Bob Spangler. I am Aunt Edie's nephew. That makes sense, doesn't it? Aunt and nephew. Goes without saying, I was probably her favorite nephew. And she was my godmother. And the nice thing about her being my godmother was, I don't know for how many years, I thought she was Santa Claus. Because at Christmas time, I got the best presents in the world. It wasn't Christmas until the mailman brought the package from Aunt Edie, right, Mike? Yeah, so she was a joy. She was a joy, that's for sure. I'm here for my mom, Ruth Ann Spangler, Ruth Ann McGinnis, or as most people know her as Pooch or Poochie, Aunt Poochie. And Mom is 92, lives in Atlanta by herself, and doing real good. Sharp as a tack, mentally, a little frail at 92, and she hated that she could not be here. She just couldn't make the trip. But I want to tell you, she's doing good. But like all of us since May, right now she's got a troubled heart, okay? And as we all do. And you know what? I truly believe the Lord will get us through this. And before long, all we'll remember are the great, great things. So it's okay to have a troubled heart right now, okay? But my mom, she wrote a note and asked me to read it. I'm just happy that she figured out I learned how to read finally to this point. But I would like to read this, and this is from Pooch. To Mary Jane, Mike, Pat, Jean, Liz, John, spouses, grandchildren, other relatives, friends, and caregivers. Pooch wanted you to know that she wanted to write something about Edie. And she said, Edie is my sister, my friend, my mentor, my confidant. There were 6 sisters, and the other 5 of us always said that Edie was the one who taught us how to love. Growing up, we knew that we were loved, but families didn't demonstrate it much. Certain cultures just didn't display their affection. But at college age, Edie knew that we must show our feelings and should not be embarrassed about it. So, pretty soon, we were hearing, I love you, and were being hugged and kissed quite naturally. So now, all of us, all in the extended families, are about the huggiest, kissiest people around, and it's all sincere. Being a school social worker, she helped many families and also friends who asked for advice. She didn't preach much. If friends asked for advice, she would say, first, you need to stay well, take care of yourself, and then always mind your own affairs. She never talked about others, and I knew that if I told her something in confidence, she would never repeat a word of it. How great is that? She loved nothing more than being with her family, her sisters and their families, and lots of friends, just to talk, have fun, and conversations. She helped me in so many ways, and I'm sure that she touched you too. And what a wonderful mom she was. Just look at these 6 children. They're the least prestigious and most caring and compassionate kids around. She said many years ago, I don't need to celebrate Mother's Day. My kids treat me like it's Mother's Day every day. And they did. And of course, the feeling was mutual. As a grandma, she would have the kids over for sleepovers, and they would play games and have lots of goodies. They were told that they could call Edie at any time, any place, long distance or not, and collect if need be. I could write more, but you all know her history. I love her so much. Hard to express how much. I have so many, many happy memories. So I do not mourn her because she was ready to go. But I do thank her for all the fun and happiness she brought to all of us. Dear Edie, your wonderful, caring ways will shine on all of us and perhaps help us to be better people. Thank you for the great example you showed us and all the love that you shared. Now rest in peace, dear one. Know that we all loved you. Pooch.
So next we have reflections from cousins, Ann Trichler.
Hi, I'm Ann, representing the Trichler family and honoring Aunt Edie. When our mom, Helen, Aunt Edie's sister, passed away in October of 2017, the 5 Trichler girls, Ann, Jane, Mary Beth, Elaine, and Barbara, sat down and wrote a thank you note to her. We'd like to extend our thank yous to Aunt Edie. Thank you for being a loving, supportive sister to our mom. Thank you for the wonderful 6 cousins you gave us. Thank you for the life stories you shared. Thank you for sharing your birthday and your name with Elaine. Thank you for godmothering Barbara. Thank you for always making us feel like the most important person during a visit. Thank you for sharing vacations with us each summer while we were growing up. So many wonderful memories. For example, 12:30 1:15. The boys were never quite clear when they came in. The Brandenburg Open, which was lots and lots of fun. That's the family name of our small town golf championship. Well, we could go on, but I'm not going to. Thank you for introducing us to our first roller coaster rides in your backyard in Columbus. Thank you for letting us back in the house. The aunts planned a quiet day playing bridge while the uncles took all the kids to the Cubs game. The game was sold out. Talk about some unhappy aunts. Thank you for rooting for Jane's pitching during her no-hit softball game. She walked everyone. Thank you for being there for all of us when Dad had a major heart attack. Thanks for keeping us up on all the politics and the Cubbies. Thank you for being there holding our mother's hand at our dad's memorial service. Thank you for sharing your home with Kara during her fellowship year, and especially the Thursday night pizzas and TV shows. Most of all, thank you for introducing us to your ice cream pie. It became a staple at all our family gatherings. We love you and we'll miss you.
Okay, that was beautiful. I mean, everything is beautiful. This is amazing. Now we're gonna have some reflections from some of Edie's grandchildren. We're gonna start with Aaron and Aiden Driscoll.
Okay, I have my tissues ready. Hi everyone, I'm Erin, Mary Jane's daughter. I grew up and still live in Boston, but despite that distance, my childhood is filled with memories of my grandmother, both at home and in Chicago. Often when I think of these memories of my grandmother, I think of food. I think of macaroni and cheese with stewed tomato sauce that my mom learned from her and she would make for us on cold nights. I think of the ice cream pie that you just heard about. Grammy kept them in her downstairs freezer, and I remember Aiden was always sent downstairs to pick up the pie once we'd finished eating so it could defrost while we cleared and cleaned dishes. And who can forget the dumplings? Grammy's Dutch dinner was my absolute favorite meal. I used to ration the leftover dumplings in our freezer after her visits. I'd heat them up one at a time with a little bit of sauerkraut and a generous pouring of gravy. As I got older, I didn't just watch my grandmother cook, but cooked alongside her, especially for Thanksgiving, which we always spent in Chicago. Standing next to her at the stovetop, I learned how to thicken gravy without lumps by mixing a slurry of water and flour. I learned how important it is to find the head of celery at the grocery store with the most leaves, because that's where all the flavor for the broth comes from. She showed me exactly how much of that delicious broth to mix into the bread cubes that she had sliced with that electric knife for the dressing. And I remember the first year that I was assigned to make the cranberry sauce. I was so nervous. I, alone, was in charge of a whole dish at Grammy's Thanksgiving table. Of course, I was not alone. She helped me rinse and pick through the berries and recommended that I replace half the water with orange juice. So, really, I couldn't take full credit. The finished product was ours. While we were in the kitchen, she would ask me about school and other goings-on in my life. Despite having 10 grandchildren, each with their own interests, Grammy was able to keep careful track of all of our lives. She even remembered the names of my middle school friends, especially Catherine, who also loved Grammy's dumplings. She would also tell me stories about her own life. In the kitchen, I heard about her time in school, in the Marines, and her experience as a mother returning to work. One of my favorite memories of my grandmother is from 2 Thanksgivings ago. I decided I wanted to bake her date nut loaf, which I had seen her make many times, but had never made myself. Grammy sat next to the kitchen counter in her walker and watched as I followed her recipe. I added hot water to the dates to plump them up and mixed the batter together. "Are you okay, Grammy?" I asked. "Do you need anything?" She had become quiet. "No, honey, I'm just enjoying watching you," she replied. When I took the loaf out of the oven and unmolded it to cool, I was nervous about the look of it, so I took the cooling rack over to my grandmother. "Oh, that looks perfect, honey," she said. Though I will never be able to stand next to Grammy in the kitchen again, whenever I make one of her recipes, I will remember her and be reminded the finished product is still ours. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to ask my brother and my sister to come up here and join me, Kelly and Griffin.
Good morning. Okay, so I prepared a little something. When I was younger, I never realized how lucky I was to have the grandmother that I did. She was always there for birthdays, graduations, and other important moments in our lives. She always told me when I was younger about the importance of learning. Not just the stuff that I would learn at school, but the things I would learn from the people I would meet throughout my life, and that's something that I've never forgotten. Growing up in Georgia, a lot of our vacations were spent piling into the car and driving to Chicago. No matter how late we got there, to her house, she was always standing at the top of the stairs, waiting for us with a smile. That's the thing I remember most about our grandma. She had an infectious laugh and a smile that would brighten up any room she was in. She genuinely cared about people and always took time to get to know someone, regardless of how long she had known them or even if she would ever see them again. This wasn't something she had to do, but it was something that she wanted to do because that's the type of person that she was. Grandma wouldn't have wanted us to be sad today, but instead happy that we are all together to celebrate the thing that is most important, family. Thank you.
Thanks, Griffin. All right, Jack and Jennifer Gerard.
Wow, there's a lot of you out there, and wow. Okay, so we'll start off with that. My grandma, I know she knows everything about every one of you out there. She looks at, if she was up here, she's looking down and she's like, wow, look at all my friends. She's got all their family. I mean, this is a good place where we're at. This is a good service. This is a good memorial. Last night I was laying in bed thinking, Jack, are you going to talk tomorrow? What could you possibly say? There's too much. This woman, she's 99 years old. There's too much to talk about. So I thought, I'm just going to talk about a normal day going to grandma's. I went to my grandma's from 8 months old, and I'm now 20 years old. She would watch us at least once a week, and it was pretty much the same thing every time. When I was real young, what sweater is Mr. Rogers going to wear? She would say red, I'd say blue, it'd be green, and then we'd laugh about it because we almost never got it right. Never. As I got older, Mr. Rogers switched to Tom and Jerry. Lots of Tom and Jerry. She loved Tom. I love Jerry. We watched a lot of Scooby-Doo. She didn't like that one as much, but that was okay. We played a lot of board games after watching TV. We'd play Monopoly, which she loved. Jennifer didn't really like it as much, but I was just happy I had someone to play Monopoly with, my grandma. After that, you know, as younger, we had, I don't know, if some of you have been to our house. Nice picture window in the back. We could see the electrical wires. And she would always have me come out, and we would watch the squirrels run on the electrical wires. She'd be, Jack, the squirrels are back. We gotta watch them. There'd be 2 or 3. They'd run around, do their fun little thing, and it was always a great time. After that, it was always take a nap, and I got to take a nap in Grandma's bed. That thing is huge, especially for like a 5-year-old. I'd run, she'd take the covers off, and I'd run, and I'd jump into it, and she'd be so happy. It was always great. And then the best thing was after the nap, without a doubt. She'd get the ice cream out, she'd get the cone out, be, Jack, you want some sprinkles? I'd be, of course, always. And then my mom would be there, or my dad, and she would pick us up. We always had the ice cream. We got older and we stopped going to Grandma's as much. She would come and visit us instead. She'd come and she'd be there after school. And those were good days. You know, you got to talk to her. I found out whatever had happened to Obama that day, that week, Grandma let me know. So that was great. You know, she was a great woman, and I don't have a lot of other great things to say. I do have to say I am very happy that she's up there in heaven now, looking down at us. I know I never got to meet my grandpa, but from what she said and from what I've heard, he was a great man, and I'm very happy that they're finally reunited. They're going to have a great time together now. Thank you for all coming.
All right, and for the last reading for the grandchildren, we have Olivia, Kaylee, and Cade Houlihan.
All right, hello everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'm Olivia. This is my sister Kaylee and my brother Cade. We're John's kids. As you've already been hearing, my grandma was an incredible lady. She impacted so many people, and you're just gonna keep hearing more stories about that. But Kaylee's gonna go first.
Our grandma was so many things: witty, compassionate, protective, intelligent, confident, self-reliant. But one of the things she was not was quiet. If you knew our grandma, you knew that once she started a story, you'd be there for a good half an hour. But that's one of the things we loved the most about her, were her stories. She had this amazing ability to stop time and take you back to where she was. You'd listen to her amazing life detailed by her outstanding memory. But as much as she talked, she genuinely listened. She'd say, "Now, honey, how's that boy of yours? Or how are your classes? Tell me again, which ones are you taking? How's gymnastics?" She wanted to know about you and took a genuine interest in what was happening in your life. There are so many things we'll miss about our grandma.
I'm really gonna miss seeing her at every family function. She never missed any homecoming dance pictures, any sporting events, recitals, pre-trick-or-treating costume viewings, or even birthdays. Up until last year, she was still even hiking up the bleachers at my gymnastics meets. Most Sundays, she would also come over for dinner, and it was a great excuse for us all to make time and to spend together as a family. And there's so many things that, that she would bring to us as a family. Even our dogs would look forward to her visits, as she loved all animals and they loved her.
I think you kind of got the idea that she loved food, and that's where I got my love of food from. We already talked about her famous dumplings and stuffing and how they were always cooked to perfection. But what I'm really going to miss about her is her love of desserts. I too am a fellow dessert lover, and I'd ask my grandma what was for dessert before we even had dinner, and she would have me come over and look at all the desserts, whether it was the coconut cream pie or the ice cream pie. It was so good, and I'm gonna miss that.
Our grandma taught us to be strong individuals. To put it simply, our grandma was a badass. She was born in 1920, a time when women were still oppressed. Yet she was ahead of her time as a lieutenant in the Marine Corps during World War II. And when women were expected to be in the kitchen, our grandma got her master's in social work. Grandma taught us not to be a participant in life, to be a participant, not a bystander. Everyone always knew her opinions, and that Obama held a special place in her heart. She lived through 18 presidents during good and bad times of history, but continued to maintain faith in her country by always voting.
As a young kid, as I think everyone does, we tend to focus on what we don't have rather than what we do. And whether I was at a gymnastics competition or a high school dance, I'd always look at my peers and think how much better their lives are than mine. However, as I've matured a little and grown up, my grandma taught me to appreciate the things I've been given in life and to see the value in some intangible things. One of the most prominent and rare virtues I've come to see that I have in my life is the support one family member can give to another. My grandma has done that for me, so at a dance or a big meet, rather than leering at the advantages of others, I would now see an advantage I have, the raw and pure support of my ever-loving grandmother. Her continual support of me and everyone else that had the gift of her care is something that I'll never forget and something that I'm going to pass on to the other people in my life.
So we want to conclude with one final piece of advice that our grandmother told us often. She'd say, "Love every day and learn the most that you can. And don't let anyone change you." And that's a really tough thing to do. But if we learn to love every day and to try and learn as much as we can from other people, especially those who challenge our beliefs, and be content with the person that we are, we can all live lives as fulfilled as our grandmas. Thank you.
Well said, guys. So this part, we're gonna hear from Edie's children, and if she was here, she would definitely tell you that that is her proudest achievement. And you just look around this room and just the love that everyone has for each other, the siblings, and the love they show to everyone else. I know my fiance, Christine, she couldn't be here today, but I remember she always, every time we hang out with the Houlihan's, whether it's Jean and Pat or John or whoever's down, she just always is in such amazement of how wonderful they are. Just the love, the everything, just what everyone said, the caring, the just open their heart, would give you the shirt off their back, anything. And I'm so thankful to be the first nephew of you all, and kind of had that attention, but I couldn't have asked for a better childhood with my grandmother as my grandmother and all you in my life. So thank you so much. And first of Edie's children to start would be Mary Jane.
I had an introduction I was going to start with, but as I was walking up here, there was a table that made a statement to me that I wanted to share because I think it's true. It said, make sure everyone knows that where mothers come, you all hit the mother load, with her. And I think that's so true. Long before some of my statements are going to be repetitive in a slightly different perspective from what was said by the prior speakers. But first off, thank you all for coming and being here. She's looking down and loves it, seeing all of this. Long before I was born, though, my mom, as was said earlier, was way ahead of her time. And as an example, she was commissioned into the Marine Corps at the age of 23 as a first lieutenant. And she was actually responsible for delivering the supplies, not the military supplies, but the supplies needed for the daily living for the troops in Europe. And I mean, I can't imagine a 23 being responsible for that, and she did very well. She told me that what the Marine Corps gave her, a young woman from a small town of Latrobe, Pennsylvania, the skill sets and experience to further pursue goals and dreams that she had. And one of them was she wanted to get her graduate degree in social work, and she got a 2-year master's degree. She did there for her it was a 2-year master's, and she really actually did in that year when she recounted it to me, close to what would have been what you needed for a PhD. The project she did was actually with children that were at Johns Hopkins getting the early heart surgery, the Blalock-Taussig procedure, and she was part of that team. When she graduated, she stayed in the Washington, D.C. area, and she was a teacher at Catholic University in social work, and she met our dad. He was one of her students, and they got married. And she continued with her interest in social work, but one of her major goal in life was to have a family. She philosophically believed that the family is the foundation of us as a human society. A healthy family units really make a culture. And she took time off up until when John was in first grade. And by the way, I'm Mary Jane, to people that don't know right now. And I live in Boston. But she took off time until John went to first grade. They had 6 children, and as was stated, we were her greatest production, she always said. And she mentored us and really instilled in us the fact that we could to trust ourselves and to believe in ourselves and value ourselves. And with that, then that we could do what we wanted to do. And she and my dad worked hard to make that possible for us as much as possible. Then, as we grew up, she helped us, and then we got married and we all had families. And she said that her goal at that time was to help us do and continue what she believed in terms of our lives. And she reminded all of us to love and cherish and take care of our mates. She said that the family would be fine if the mates were fine. And she was right about that. And it's something that I have carried through, and I see that in my own family. I could go on and talk about things, but in closing, I just want you all to know that I know that we're all here and we're going to miss her. However, she's here with us in spirit and couldn't be happier with the family and friends that she has and has always had. She told me one day about 10 years ago that when she passed away, she did not want a funeral. She told all of us that. And what she wanted was a celebration. She wanted us to party. And that's why we're all here today. And thank you.
All right, next up is Grandma's self-proclaimed favorite child, my dad, Mike Houlihan.
That's correct. I'm so glad you guys are here. I can't tell you. I've had a lucky life. And I'm not talking about October, which I did. My family was here, and they just helped me. And I knew my mother was here. But you gotta remember, I had a special mother, always. When I was a kid, I always knew my mother was different than other mothers. And you just always did what you did. And that's the way she was. And I had 4 sisters, my brother. I was so glad when he was born then. Please, we're 4th, finally had a brother. And we're really tight. We've had a great life together, we always have. And the cousins, they've been such an important part of my life. You know, Bob's he's another one. We got in trouble sometimes, not afraid, but it is what it is. And at one point, I was so lucky to find my wife. And then I had my kids, which I had the prince. He was here earlier. When that happened, it was so important. You remember what happened to Dad? We had the accident, and it changed her life and our lives right then. I was trying to get a business going, and I realized what happened to my father. It's an accident. It just happened. And when I was there with my mother, we were all going for breakfast, and they kept saying, "Just tell her." I said, "I will." And Mike was coming, the prince. It was a big day. You never seen her so happy. And then there's been 9 more great people. You guys did a great job today. But my mother had a wonderful life. She really did. She had 5 sisters, and they were tight. But she was always one that was never afraid to do anything. This is when she did this, when she was 23. You think back in this, nobody thinks about it, but the whole world was in this, and she did this. My grandfather, who we didn't really know because I think 60, I was young, I don't remember him that much. He was really proud of her. She really was. Everybody was. And then she started having kids. And Mary Jane was the first one. And then Mom didn't have babies and then I came, thank God. And, within 7 years, she had 5 kids. But you never worried about that about Mom. Mom, if you had to talk to her about anything, you could talk to her about anything. One of the things I did is when I went into a business, didn't work out good, and I've been to Georgia many times. We finally made a decision, Mary and I, and Michael was not even 2 then, we're gonna go to Georgia. Let's try it. Let's try. And we did. We went there, and I said, let's just try 2 years. If it doesn't work out, we'll be back to Chicago. Well, 32 years now, we've been there, Georgia forever. But Mom always came, all the time. And I could talk to her about anything. I wasn't afraid to have kids then. When I was in my 20s, some things I probably shouldn't tell you guys about. But I wanted to have kids. And when I would come here, I was in business, and I don't know if you knew, I had ADT. I was manager. I had it 6 years. I said, I can't do this anymore. Plus, I was coaching. They were getting bigger. But Mom came all the time. I can't tell you. I was coaching football. It'd be down rain. Who's sitting there watching it up there? My mother. She never missed any of them. It was great. It was a great thing. So I know what my mother went through the last couple of years. It is what it is. But she had a great life. And I was glad I was here. I was glad with my family. But she's done some great things in her life. She's a special person. You got to remember in life, there's rocks in all our lives. You wake up, you realize it's about family. There's bad days. Life is tough. We all have to do tough things. Some things you don't want to do. Life is, I've told this many times, it's not just one place. It moves. Wherever it goes, always, I can tell you this, and I've told you guys many times, do what you like. I told my kids, and I told people, do what you like too. Make sure you enjoy what you're doing. Because when you go to a job, when you're there, there's days where you're like, geez, I don't want to do this anymore. But always have a job you enjoy. Always. And that's the way life is. But I want to say, I'll let it go. I'm so glad you guys are all here. This was an important day. Mom, we knew it was coming to this, but we love her. We've always loved her. And she was just a special person. So, she's touched a lot of your guys' lives, and you know that. Enjoy it, remember it, and always take care of your own family. Okay? There's tough days, but always enjoy it. It's always about family. It's not about business. You were president or whatever it was. Enjoy your family. So, I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad everybody's here. Love you.
Thanks, Dad. I'm just going to brag on my dad just real quick. For y'all who don't know, my dad had a stroke in October of this past year, and it really rocked our family. And just getting that call from my sister that had happened to my dad, and scariest thing in my life. But you know what? His sisters were there that day. I think Jean was, at the airport before we hung up the phone. and just taking care of my dad. And John and the rest of the family, it means so much, and just knowing that you guys all just care so much about each other, and that's what it's all about. So, thanks. And now Pat, please.
I'm Pat, and I live in Des Moines, Iowa, with my husband Dan, and he has two sons, Adam and Ben. And Adam was able to come today, and my mom loved them. I want to keep this short because a lot of the things I wanted to say have been said. I have to tell you that my sleep has been very abbreviated in the last week or so because I wake up and I think about what I wanted to say about my mom. And there's so much, and everybody's said so much. I want to do what my mom would do, and that is to thank all of you. My mom was a big please and thank you person. And thank you all so very much for being a part of our lives. I know all of you, when you would see a Houlihan child, one of the first things you would say is, "How's your mom?" And that's because our mom was just this wonderful big person in our life. Someone talked about my dad dying. He died when he was 61. It was a freak accident in downtown Chicago. And so at the time, I was 27, and my mom, in essence, was a single parent for 35 years. She parented us, and she parented a lot of other people. One of her favorite sayings was, "May I make a suggestion?" And we would say yes, and she would. My friends in Des Moines know about, we call them the Edieisms of life. She taught us to let people spread their own good and bad news. That's what she believed. My friends all started having children. I never had kids. I had a lot of animals. And she was a pipeline for parenting advice. And they'd say, ask your mom this, ask your mom that, because she knew what to do. One of the things she always said, and my girlfriends told me that they never forgot, was, there's so many books out there about how to parent and everything. She always said, take your child to the doctors and make sure that there's no health reason why something's happening or not happening. Our mom took great care of us, and in the end, we took care of her. But we didn't do it alone. My mom had the very best caregivers, and Lisa and Renee are here today. And in the beginning, we had Melba, and poor Melba, she was the first one, and my mom fought her. But then Lisa came along, and my mom, I would come in and relieve Lisa for weekends at a time, and my mom would tell me what a great time they had. And Lisa was really good about keeping my mom healthy and clean, and she'd give her meals. And my mom had cancer when she was in her early 80s, and as a result of it, she couldn't taste. But Lisa made sure she ate what she was supposed to do, and she'd always try to get my mom to, be on a regular schedule. And one time, she told Lisa, "Oh, just leave me alone, Mrs. Rush," because she was rushing her. And Lisa goes, "Okay, Mrs. Slow." And at night, after Lisa would help my mom get in her pajamas and tuck her in, she would stand up in front of her cart. It wasn't her walker, it was her cart. And and I know this because she did this with me. She goes, "Okay," and she'd hang on and she'd go like this. She goes, "We dance before I go to bed." And she would tell Lisa, this is what my mom told me, she goes, I would always try to thank her for taking such good care of me. My mom, as everybody said, loved life. She loved people. She loved visiting. Sit down, drink your coffee with her. She came out to visit me often, and when she couldn't come out on her own anymore, my sister Jean would bring her, and we'd have such great, great times. As I think way back about my mom, she was a swim team mom. She was a Girl Scout leader. She was the troop organizer, and she did a lot of this stuff while she was working. We were lucky she was a school social worker, so she had the summers and holidays off with us, and that was really great. My mom taught me how to make the best pie crust in the world. Whenever I eat a piece of See's candy or a chocolate eclair, I'll think of my mom. As everybody said, cousins, family, friends, and others that you don't even really know personally are important in life. Our family gatherings will be different because we won't have my mom's house anymore. And I've been going home to there for 55 years. We lived in Columbus, Ohio before that. But my point is, by my mom dying in her home, we always got to go home and spend those last days with her. Again, I want to thank all of you for being a part of our lives, and I want to thank my siblings, Mary Jane, Mike, Jean, Liz, and John, and your spouses and your kids. We were all there, my spouse too, Dan. We were all there for my mom in the end, and I want you to know there was so much laughter, there was so much joy. The reason we played the Marine Corps hymn is because she was a Marine, but she was in her bed from November till mid-May, and a great way to get a smile on her face was to put music on, and we'd play the Marine Corps hymn, and she would sing along. You'll see in a little bit a video that was put together by our family with precious pictures. Some didn't make the video because of production timelines. They're all over here. The music that's in the video, I wanted to tell you, is we chose because my mom loved the musician or the song or whatever. So it's very, very special to all of us, and we hope you enjoy it. There will be a reception after, and this, I'm not the last speaker, John is, but I was in charge of the reception, so I thought I'd tell you. Please join all of us and visit. My mom would want us to visit and enjoy this beautiful day, and thank you.
Fantastic. So, next child, she's not going to speak today, but it's my godmother, my Aunt Jean. I just want to recognize you, and I know how hard this has got to be for you, being so close, being the one that would always go over to Grandma's, have your dates, hang out. You know, I know how special those times were, and you know, she's so proud of you, and we all love you so much, Aunt Jean. But next we'll have Mary Elizabeth Gerard.
Okay. So I am fortunate to call Edie Houlihan my mom. Mom and I spent many years together, and we had many adventures. Dave, my husband, Jack, and Jennifer, our children, we're also fortunate to call her Edie and Grandma Edie. She loved them, they loved her. We all adored her. When my mom first met Dave, when my mom met Dave for the first time, it was at the Goodman Theater when we saw a play, A Christmas Carol. The last thing that my mom said to Dave and I that night was, "Now mind you, don't do anything I wouldn't do." We cracked up because we're like, huh, she's on to us, you know? So Mom had a full life. She was a funny and sweet lady. After my mom got her wings and I was back at work, I was having a tough day. A coworker stopped me and said, "Hey, sorry about your mom." Then she says, "Man, your mom was a real badass." And I'm like, she was a badass. It was just nothing I had ever thought about as my mom, you know? So thinking of Mom as a badass really makes me happy and cracks me up, because she was a real badass. When Jennifer was in 4th grade, her Girl Scout troop needed a new leader. I volunteered to be the leader, even though I was currently working full-time and going to school full-time. When I told Mom the good news, she said, "Honey, you need that like you need a hole in your head." And I said, "Mom, but you were my leader, too." And, hold on here. Mom was so happy to recall her times as a leader and could relate to why I volunteered to be the leader. I'm proud to say our troops is now an Ambassador Girl Scout troop. The girls will be seniors in high school this coming year. The journey continues. My in-laws, Paul and Audrey Gerard, are my second mom and dad. Audrey is recuperating from a recent surgery and is not able to be here today. As I'm talking to Audrey the other day and we're deciding this is the best thing, my mother-in-law said, "You know, I really liked your mother." She puts her head back in the lazy boy and she says, "How do I describe your mother?" She said, "She was informed." How do you be so informed? So later that night I get home and I'm talking to Dave and Jack and Jennifer, and I told them this statement, and at the same time, Jack and Jennifer both said, "It's CNN 24 hours a day," whether she was awake or asleep. Another amazing, funny truth about my mom. One other story I'd like to share was Mom watched Jack and Jennifer one day a week while we were at work. Jack was 8 months and Jennifer was 5 months old. Now she was in her 80s, but there was never a doubt that this was the best choice for us. She always said, "Honey, I won't drive the children in my car." So Dave would drop off, so she got to, of course, see him every week, see his dad roll, loved that, and I'd pick up. Well, Mom had this no drive the kids policy for many years. One day, she says, "Honey, I'd like to drive the kids to Portillo's." I'm like, so this is new. So I'm like, sure, Mom, that would be great. So, as Mom was pulling out of the garage, kids are in the back seat, she hits the wall with the car. She turns and says to them, "Oh, that never happens." And she continues to drive to Portillo's with Jack and Jennifer. In the back seat, eyes wide open, I'm sure, but they're going with Grandma for lunch. Needless to say, when the kids told me this story on our drive home that day, their eyes are wide open. They're like, "Oh, Mom, it's happened before. Grandma's car has dents in it, and the garage walls have dents too." So fortunately for everyone, not too long after this, Jack got his driver's license. Jack and Jennifer then started to drive to Portillo's, buy lunch, and they would bring it over to Grandma's. And she would say, "Oh, and honey, do you know they know to cut it up in small pieces, and they just do such a nice job." Thank you, everyone, for coming here. Mom loved all of you.
All right. And lastly, out of Edie's kids, probably the only one that could talk for longer than she could, my Uncle John.
Well, that's probably true. So I'm going to try to keep it shorter than that. Oh my goodness, look at all of you. This is my mom. She's in all of you. She's here with us and is in all of us and always will be. Some people stole some of my lines, so I'm going to have to improvise here. Mary Griffin actually brought it up the other day when we were talking about Edieisms. May I make a suggestion? You know what was beautiful about her? Was she never made a suggestion that someone didn't want. She asked you that question because she knew you needed her advice, and you knew you needed her advice. So my mom, not to repeat a lot of things, but was born in 1920, the first year women in this country could vote. As crazy as that is, she took that honor to her grave. She voted every opportunity, and thankfully my sister Jean took her to vote last November in the last election she ever voted in. Because my mom, about being informed, said you had a duty to be informed. You had a responsibility to be responsible. And that stretched beyond just your family, but as my brother indicated, that's your first responsibility, and she instilled it in all of us. The amazing thing is that at the conclusion of World War II, as a first lieutenant, she was in the 3rd class of women officers ever commissioned by the United States Marine Corps. They wanted her to stay. My brother teased my sister-in-law before they got married. In fact, the first time that she was going to meet my mom, that she was actually a general in the Marine Corps. And Mary probably believed that after she met her. So they wanted her to stay, and then she said, nope, I have other things to do with my life, and that was to go on, as Pat indicated, or Mary Jane. Her master's degree in social work from Catholic University was like a PhD dissertation, field study. Then she taught at Catholic University, where thankfully she met my father. She then went to Martinsburg, Virginia, where she worked at a VA hospital, and my dad chased her there. And through his persistence, they got married. And in 1950, that was. Mary Jane came along pretty soon after that, because my parents decided when they were getting married that they wanted to have 6 children. And the thing that's amazing is that if it wasn't for my brother, we would only have Mary Jane. Because my mom miscarried 3 times in between Mary Jane and Mike. But she was bound and determined to have 6 children. And she did, thankfully. So you do the math, 11 years, 9 pregnancies. That's a pretty challenging thing in and of itself. And it didn't stop there. It started the rest of her life. So the amazing thing is that in 1967, when I was in 1st grade, she started as a school social worker and worked for 20 years in the schools. Now, it was interesting, as Jean and Pat would share with us, is that when they went to Glenbard East, they met a lot of my mom's students. And they were amazed that you're Mrs. Houlihan's children? She was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me in my entire life. And it was true. I look at my mom's life, and there is no way to encapsulate it here today. You've heard enough, but I think you've seen it. You've seen it in everyone who's spoken here. The honor of everyone. And you did a fabulous job. I can't thank you enough. My cousins, my siblings, my children, my nieces and nephews. That's the essence of my mom. It's in all of you as well. So instead of going on and on about what I think, I thought I'd share with you some of her greatest quotes. This is the one we heard a lot when we were kids. When you have your own house, you can make your own rules. I'm using that line now. It's a darn good one. Here's a great one. This is the one that we need to probably heed the most. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. She was incredible about that. Although I would walk in at times and I would hear her talking to the TV in ways that I'm certain none of you have ever heard. You have a responsibility to be responsible. That's a tough one, but it's the essence of what she was. She was responsible to everyone, and that's why when you spoke with her, she took everything you had to say with interest. We get so hurried up in our lives that we're listening to someone, but we're not really hearing anything. Once you have your education, no one can take it away from you. Get credentialed. She was one of the first. How many women in her era had the ability to go through and get their college education, become commissioned in the Marine Corps, and then go get their master's degree, and then go on to a 20-year professional career? This is a great one. One of my great mentors is here, Joseph Mirabella, and this goes along the lines of what he taught me from the very beginning when I started practicing law. No one can take your dignity from you, only you can give it away. That's what she lived. You have to live it every day. If you don't, then there's going to be those consequences that you'll live with for the rest of your life. Another really good one that I pass on to a lot of kids today, because there's so much chatter out there, people flinging things left and right. Consider the source. Does it really matter? It probably does. Whether that be something you are studying or learning, that was the thing. You had to know who was telling you something, or whether it be a comment about you or others. Always be yourself and be in charge of your life. So, one of Jean's all-time favorites that she passes on, and it stops people in their tracks, because this happens every day when there's helter-skelter, there's stuff going wild in every direction. Who owns the problem? If we spend more time worrying about our own problems, there'll be a lot less of them in this world. The amazing thing that I learned from my mom the most was toward the end, because she lived all of these. She didn't just say it, she lived it, through and through. She lived a life of dignity and respect, and she expected that from all of us. And I think you see it here. You see it in the people who've spoken, and you've seen it in all of the experiences that you've had with her. She lived it to the very end. She taught us to treat others as you would want them to treat you. It's the golden rule. It's so easy to look past. My dad used to say, "Talk is cheap, kid." My mom never lived that life. And they taught us both that you have to live the life you expect others to want of you. It doesn't mean you change your life for them. It means that you live the life that is guided by people like her. So in the very end, I will say what we started with. She was a Marine. That wasn't an accident. The Marine Corps has a famous quote. It's called Semper Fi. It means always faithful. My mom was always faithful to everyone she met. She was faithful to my dad, her parents, her sisters, her children, her grandchildren, her work colleagues, and we all knew that. That's why we're here celebrating her life. So, Mom, I know that you're here. I know that you'll always be here with us. We miss you dearly, but I hope you enjoy the celebration that we've brought for you. Thank you.
Stars above you. I may not always look at it, but I think you're so sure about it. You never be no darling. I think you're so sure about it. But if you should ever leave me, the life will still go on, believe me. The world should show nothing. So what good would living do me? The world only knows what I need. So what good would living do me? God only knows what I'd be without you. There are places I remember all my life. Though some there are places I remember for better lives. Though some have changed, some forever. These places after moments, lovers and friends remain. I still call these places after moments are living with lovers and friends. I still can recall some are dead and some are living. All these friends and lovers, there is no one compares with you. All these friends and lovers, their meaning. When I think of love with you, that's something memories. I know I'll never lose affection. Think of love, people are saying you. When I know I'll never lose affection. Think about them, people are saying my life. I love you. I know I'll often stop and think about them. My life, I love you more. I know I'll never lose affection. People and things that went before. I know I'll affection. Think about them. People and things that went before. I love you. I know I'll often stop and think about them. In my life, I love you more. Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned in time. It's unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind, hanging on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos and memories and dead skin on trial. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. Dead skin
favours and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up in strings. These are a few of my favourite things. Sleigh bells and schnitzel with noodles, wild geese that fly with green-coloured ponies and crisp apple strudels, doorbells and sleigh bells and schnitzel with noodles, wild geese that fly with the moon on their wings. These are a few of my favourite things. Eyelashes, silver white winters, girls in white dresses with blue satin sashes, snowflakes that stay on my nose and eyelashes, silver white winters that melt into spring. These are a few of my favourite things. When the dog bites, when the bee stings, when I'm feeling sad, I simply remember my favourite things, and then I don't feel so bad. Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages, raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, my favourite kettles and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up with strings. These are a few of my favourite sleigh bells and schnitzel with noodles, wild geese that fly with a hood on their wings. These are a few of my favourite sleigh bells and schnitzel with noodles, wild geese that fly with the girls in white dresses with blue satin sashes, snowflakes that stay on my nose and eyelashes, silver white winters that girls in white dresses with blue satin sashes, my favourite things. When the dog silver white winters that melt into spring, when I'm feeling sad, I simply remember my favourite things. When the bee stings, when I'm feeling sad, I simply remember my favourite things, and then I feel so
West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, It's a celebration. Celebrate good times, come on. Let's celebrate. There's a party going on right here. A dedication.